Hello and welcome to the Larger Than Necessary First Player Token podcast. This is episode 99. My name is Chris.
I'm Euan.
I'm David.
I'm Pawel.
Hello people. this is Pawel trying to keep his voice quiet. We just gave him a lecture.
I've been instructed not to be loud and not to be quiet. I've no idea what am I supposed
You're
to
really
be
struggling
today.
with the concept.
You really are. I can see it in real time.
We've got the waveforms up on the screen here so that Pawel can watch himself speaking.
I'm not entirely
It's
sure.
bizarre.
This feedback loop that we've
I've
set
gone
up's
over the
gonna work.
board already. No, look at this. Ow!
Thank God for the compression tool. Okay, well, episode 99, boys.
Big
99.
flake.
Oof.
It's a big flake, yes. That's a good name.
Stick a flake in it. Call it a 99 for some reason.
Where does that name come from, 99?
No idea. And I'm not about to start looking it up.
Was it 99 pence to begin with? Now, that probably sounds far too expensive. I think the flake 99 is a bit older than that.
The flake has been around for... But I suppose the flake in conjunction with an ice cream maybe elevates both to a 99 pence.
99 pence meal.
Yeah. A meal, yeah.
Knife
A meal for a
boys.
child in the 70s.
You've lost me at the very beginning of this anecdote.
You never heard of the 99?
No, but I think if you're going to try and pull me into this anecdote, you'll find it that you still can't find me. I've been lost and truly.
When we were just little kids, you know, with no shoes and stuff.
Oh, did you grow up in Poland then?
Communist Poland.
Did
you have ice cream vans?
Alright.
Did you have ice cream vans in Communist Poland?
No, ice cream is such a Western thing. We had ice.
You had ice? Was that given to you by the state?
No, just by winter.
Okay, well, when the ice cream van used to come round, you used to get a Flake 99, which was just a normal ice cream cone with normal ice cream in it, but somebody stuck a flake in it for some reason and called it a 99.
I like how you call it normal rather than vanilla as well.
Oh, it's normal.
I know it's normal.
No, I wasn't meaning the flavour. I was just meaning there was nothing special about this ice cream.
Oh yeah, but it wasn't. It's normal.
Just that
It's
they had
normal
flake
flavour as
stuck in
well.
it. Yeah, it wasn't like it was like, you know, highbrow ice cream or anything. It was just here's some vanilla ice cream with a flake in it. That's your 99.
It was normal flavour, mind you.
Sounds appetizing.
Anyway, enough of the ice cream podcast.
Yes, please.
We're here to talk about board games this week.
And I'm actually here. That's amazing.
Yeah, you are. You're actually. We've got a full house. It's been a while.
Wow.
It has been a while.
I'm getting all goosebumpy.
And actually, Pawel,
Hello.
you're here, and the last time we talked board games, we made a promise to you that you would have an RPG slot in this, and you have given it up.
Well, yes, partially willingly, because I wanted it right, and I wanted to talk about the newest version of the Legend of the Five Rings, which I have played numerous times before, but not this particular version, and it does seem to have this new dice mechanic, which is getting more popular in RPGs these days, like the Genesis and a few... And in fact, a lot of systems in board games where you've got your themed dice with various non-numerical results.
Yeah, I had a look at the Genesis system. I quite like the look of it. That's a Fantasy Flight one, isn't it?
It is, yes. So the Legend of the Five Rings is not Fantasy Flight, but what I'm saying is that they've come up with a similar system. And I should also mention, because this is very important, that there is an RPG coming out in the Genesis system based on what's it called again? The Shadow of the Beanstalk. So that's Android Netrunner setting, and I am beyond excited. What's beyond excited? I'm just wondering. I'm like very, very excited.
Well, there's outside of the building.
I'm excited also there if I make myself loud enough.
No, you're not allowed to do that.
I'm quite loud by the what I see on
So why is this Genesis system so important?
Well, no, it's just your traditional dice systems are essentially just numbers you roll, and whether you've hit your targets or not, your whatever action in RPGs or board games is either successful or not, whereas nowadays some board games and definitely some RPGs are aiming for a more storytelling supportive systems, so your custom dice will give you not only a success or not, but also flavor, and Genesis seems to have quite a focus on it, so I'm looking forward to it. Everything is pre-ordered and out of stock at the moment.
Well, that's good. That's handy.
It's just release date not.
But yeah, the stipulation was that you have to have played the RPG that you were going to talk about, so you've not done that.
I've not played this particular version of it, so I thought I'm gonna wait till a bit and do it.
Have you maybe considered just watching a video of people playing it and then pretending that you've played it?
See, that's the thing.
That's your usual strategy, isn't it?
There's people playing various kinds of tabletop RPGs these days and having podcasts made of it. Some sort of, what's it called again? I can't even remember. There is something like this. If you go to bloody chaoscards.co.uk and want to buy something, you're going to have a separate category of product only for this particular podcast playing RPGs. It's bizarre, but also if people are having fun this way, why not?
It's a big thing these days.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't do that. I'd rather run my own session or in fact play it than listen to people do it. That's just strange.
Can we join in your session, Pawel?
Can we record it?
I like that hesitation there. I knew that was going to come.
Yeah, why don't we all come round to your house, Pawel?
Yeah.
We'll do some role playing.
We'll roleplay. We'll record it.
I am yet to see you guys roleplay during your roleplaying sessions.
That's because you never invite us round to your house.
It doesn't have anything to do with the venue. Well, or do you only roleplay the way you do when you're here?
Dave's never roleplayed with us.
Oh yeah,
it's only Euan. Euan tries.
I make at least some of an effort.
I'll have you know.
I
try to
fully
keep it
agree.
not ready.
Euan does put
salted.
an effort into his in character sort of.
I roleplay 24/7.
That's a Dave.
You have a strange
the best
class.
Class Dave.
Challenge class.
Aww.
So yeah, obviously no RPG talk today at all.
Well, that was a little bit of RPG
That was
talk.
good. 5 minutes of non-RPG talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well,
yeah.
I look forward to hearing about this Genesis system and these flavoursome dice. So, like, when you jump over a chasm, it'll be like, oh, you don't just succeed, you succeed
emotions.
with style. You make it over, but you feel kind of sad about it. You're not quite sure if jumping over the chasm was the right thing to do.
Yeah, you're a born storyteller, Dave.
You accidentally flash the creatures at the bottom of the cavern.
Your robe flies up around your head.
No, but even those examples, as fantastic as they are, they showcase what RPG should be about, and your mathematical systems sort of tend to put you in this tunnel thinking whether you're succeeding or not.
But Pawel, is that not removing, the whole thing of people coming up with stuff themselves?
No, this is
Or is
encouragement.
it's
nothing else.
It feels like a prompt, I think.
Yeah, it's a problem, but is that not then forcing you down a certain path?
Oh, you're only using the mechanics of a game if you want to.
Well, I would only have one side
You
of
don't.
this, and it would be your loincloth has perished.
I'm not sure if this is a game I want to play, really.
I would love if you ran a game and that was the
That was the flavour.
failure thing for everything.
Your loincloth perishes.
Loincloth, the RPG.
Please ask yourselves again, why are we not role-playing together?
Go listen to get to the end of the
think
story
you've-
with your loincloth intact.
We've just got the answer here.
So many ways that can fail. You need to make this system.
Could actually be.
This could work. People would play this.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure there would be plenty of those.
The Genesis system won't have a chance.
Oh, there would be a special die just
Oh, it
for
would be,
that.
yeah.
Nice, so would it? Yeah. The loincloth die. Oh, it's fantastic. Thank
stuff.
Thank you for that.
RPGs are great.
Yeah, I'm just beginning to realise that there might be a reason why we don't talk about RPGs that much.
You make this realization every time we talk about RPGs.
Yeah, I should have done this. I should have in fact thought about it when you offered to do it again. I must have forgotten what it's like.
Okay, so Pavel, instead of playing RPGs, what have you been playing?
I've been playing plenty of RPGs. It's just we've talked sort of about them before.
They'll have to say the question again.
What? I thought we were aiming at another anecdote here. Oh no, I'm being too loud again. I'm gonna try a bit quieter.
Pavel's been playing Deep Madness by Dimension Games.
Thank you, David.
I'm just gonna have Dave today narrate what I've been doing. Go ahead, Dave.
Are you sure you want that to happen?
Go ahead, Dave. You've read the manual.
Pavel's loincloth has perished.
No, come on, it's your game.
Hello, it's my it's a Kickstarter and a fairly massive one, and it's finally been delivered to me, and I've sort of set up half my bedroom with it and lit it with plenty of lights and been playing it at night, and it's amazing.
What, instead of sleeping?
Well, you on one hand you can sleep, or on the other hand you can submerge yourself deep in the whatever futuristic ocean bed, I suppose, where there is this mining facility overtaken by Lovecraftian creatures. What would you choose?
I'd take the latter option rather than your bedroom.
Well, exactly. This is a very good choice. So that's what I've been doing the past few nights, and losing badly, and then restarting the first scenario all over again, and losing again, and playing it again. Because it's one of those games where you actually have to try properly hard, and then maybe also have some luck on your side to actually succeed. But you know what? If the theme is Lovecraftian, it's supposed to be quite unforgiving, and I've played board games before where if they solo or cooperative board games where if they
Which this one is, by the way,
very much so,
in case
yes.
you're wondering.
If they were too hard, you would just maybe rage quit and don't do it again. I remember this with Shadowrun Crossfire. It was sort of dry and just impossible to play through without getting quite frustrated. Whereas this game, I keep losing and wanting more. So I suppose well done in that regard. So, am I now talking 5 minutes without saying what the game is?
Yeah, you've gone a long time without telling people what the game
Fantastic.
actually is.
I was aiming for this. I was waiting for you guys to realise this.
Classic Pavel review.
Thank you. I wanted this to actually be at least noticed and appreciated. Right, well, I think this is actually becoming a genre, or at least it's a genre that I'm interested in, so I've seen a couple of games like this. Deep Madness is your, as Dave said, cooperative. You can obviously play it solo because of it. Game where you've got multiple characters, each of them with their own skills and equipment they can search for, exploring various... exploring your map. In this particular case, it's the underwater mining facility that I've mentioned, which is essentially a series of tiles set up according to whichever scenario you're playing. And all you need to do is meet with the goals of a given scenario. So there's been a few games like this recently.
More than a few. This is a what you've described so far is a pretty standard setup, like games like Mansions of Madness and hundreds of others. It's the kind of action points in this game.
Yeah, each character will have action points.
And there's the set things you can do, aren't there? You can move, you can shoot at the monsters, you can trade items, you can pick up, you can investigate things.
Yeah. So your standard fare, and if you're familiar with this sort of game, then you'll probably know if you've played something like Endure the Stars, which I have enjoyed, I must say. But if I were to compare Endure the Stars with Deep Madness, it would be like you get Endure the Stars, and then you start building upon it layers of complexity and additional value, and you reach Deep Madness. But sometimes it's going to be, obviously tight mechanics that will convince you to play a game like this. Sometimes it's going to be just the quality of the material you get.
Because this is very much a miniatures game.
Very much so. You don't get any standees here. Well, I suppose you do when you have whatever locked hatches and stuff like this. But this was a massive Kickstarter, and if you got the pledge that I got, you're gonna need a new shelf just for this game. And the amount of, the quantity aside, because you're getting an awful lot of figures, is one thing, but I've not seen yet a game with such a beautiful design, and not just design in terms of the ideas the designers had for all the monsters you get to encounter in this game, but also just the quality of like the way they made. Very impressive, I must say. That's like, I've spent my money well here, thank you.
Yeah. It's a Cthulhu-themed game, but
yeah. Well, I mean,
also pretty heavily influenced by Dead Space.
Very much so, to the point that some of your because the
monsters,
I'm gonna say the protagonists in this game,
yeah.
apart from maybe the main 6 ones, all seem to have a root somewhere and. Out there already, like you're gonna have a character that's maybe named differently, but she clearly is Ripley from Alien. You're gonna have in fact, you're gonna have a number of characters from the Alien franchise.
Yeah, there's Newt is represented in some way as well, isn't there? There's
yes,
like
there is a wee girl, Hannah. Yeah,
there's definitely a lot of sci-fi movie influences in this game.
Very much so.
But it's underwater though as well. This is the thing. So there's like a Dagon. The whole Dagon thing is involved to an extent. So because of the Cthulhu, but underwater.
Well, obviously, all the Lovecraftian mythos is, well, not all of it, but the main part of it is I'm gonna say, well, depths.
It's like the start. Yeah, it's like the starting point for it because it doesn't. It's not a slavish representation of any Lovecraftian.
It's just taking the tropes you know, and it's sort of merging them really well. But the underwater part was the only part that I wasn't exactly sure why they're going for it, because they could easily go for your space station or something like this.
They could, yes.
The mechanic related to some of the locations you explore being underwater is possibly one of the more important mechanics in the game. One of the reasons why you play games like this is atmosphere, and I choose my games because of themes and because of atmosphere, because of the way those games deliver their stories, whether they're shallow or deeper. And Deep Madness has a very well structured dynamics of what would compose your standard gameplay, so aiming the actions you're undertaking in order to achieve your goals here, whether it's investigating for whatever clues, defeating or running away from monsters. But equally important is how much the game gives you the sense of dread, I suppose, in this particular case, because it is a horror game. And because of the drowning mechanics, where your characters are actually running out of breath if you're taking actions in flooded rooms or corridors, the entire, I suppose some of us might just be used by now to the mechanics of exploring, searching, fighting, trying to get from point A to point B. The flooded rooms, as simple as this idea seems to be, is just bloody brilliant. And it really puts a lot of pressure on you as a player to come up with a strategy to do what you need to do. But it also puts you in this abandoned, haunted facility. It's really atmospheric, as I said.
And it's one of the things that makes it stand apart from the sort of bog standard move, shoot, pick up things. There's a few others interesting things about it as well, though, aren't there?
Another bit which is again quite well crafted is the fact that in this game all your tiles get double sided, but it's not just so that you have twice as many. It's just you're gonna have essentially the same area, but painted twice. One of them being sort of abandoned, but maybe
is it not corrupted? It's called when it flips over.
It's called Devoured. Think about it as your standard Silent Hill mechanic when you're surrounded by, say, a room, and then suddenly you get your Silent Hillish whatever siren, I think it was, and suddenly you're surrounded by a very hellish sort of aesthetics. So the Devoured Rooms, the Devoured mechanic as such is almost every round one of the tiles gets flipped, And along with it, not only you obviously get different aesthetics of whatever room you're in, which is like blood smeared on the floors and everything broken and stuff like this, just your standard nice gory horror, but you also get very random devoured debuffs, I should say, in every bit of those locations. Suddenly, all the creatures you're running away from or trying to defeat have potentially additional skills or special abilities, things like this. And yet another mechanic which is very important for cooperative games is how exactly you structure your rounds. Who acts when, what sort of AI governs how your monsters move and stuff like this.
Yeah, because there's not a fixed turn order in this game, is there? It's slightly variable based on the monsters.
It varies on the monsters. It varies on. I mean, every round you sort of one of the queues sort of gets moving. Yeah,
because it's quite cool because you actually line up these cards, don't you, to show the order that everyone's going to take in the turn.
Yeah.
So it's the player cards and the monster cards, and typically they'll be interleaved with each other. So maybe a player will go first, and then a monster, and then maybe another monster,
Indeed.
and then a player, and that varies depending on. Because you don't have to have the same monsters for every scenario.
No, you're welcome to choose them if you like.
Yeah.
And even in the standard box, you already have a very nice variety of monsters. But with the add-ons, and again, this Kickstarter was a little bit scary when it comes to the amount of. I think it was. Over 150 miniatures, and most of them are monsters, and really pretty ones as well. But think about them this way. All those monsters will have different algorithms almost. As in, you've got each of them is printed with their own sort of, algorithm. So your basic monster will have, for example, first action move, another action attack. This is your standard easy, not very scary grunt called Ravenous, for example. But then you're going to have much more specialized monsters, and suddenly you realize that each of those creatures is completely different, and you have to adapt your strategies to them. And that's just your standard box. I've not even dipped into the expansions where those monsters get absolutely crazy. The idea here is that the creatures you encounter are the embodiment of your actual horror, the horror that the characters I suppose go through and express in a supernatural way. There's this sphere somewhere deep in the
because there is a story, and it's an overarching story, supposedly.
Essentially the evil corporation, which owns the facility, because there's always going to be in science fiction evil corporations make everything better. It's just that's the way things should be. The more, the better. They've uncovered a relic, or an artifact of otherworldly, supposedly origin, which they're trying to make research on and just learn more about. And the sphere, which is what it's called, begins to, talk back. If you look into the abyss, the abyss looks back at you. That's pretty much the premise of the story. And in this case, the abyss looks at you by interpreting your fears and then killing you with them. That's pretty much that.
Ah, right. So is that why all the monsters have got
called
names like penitence and
hysteria and bathophobia and blind, delirium, twisted, putrid, all sorts of stuff like that. But it's not just them. Their abilities will be obviously corresponding with their names.
Yeah, some of the ones in the expansions are kind of nuts, aren't they? Because they do there's ones that can possess people.
Yeah.
They're the sort of more advanced ones, but.
In which case, and again, a monster possesses you, and suddenly it sort of almost reshapes the way it acts. See, I've played games like this before that essentially every single enemy used the same algorithm for just move and shoot or move and melee attack, whereas in this game, each monster is different. That's just brilliant.
So does it work? Because there was a lot of reaction to this game where people were saying, look, it's just a move and shoot game with a few, you know, there's this underwater, oh, okay, big deal, you can't, if you're in an underwater room, you have to move your little breath dial. So do these differences that you've talked about, in particular the monster AI and the combinations of monsters together, is that enough to lift it, do you think, beyond the sort of mediocre?
I do wonder whether that's going to change in the future scenarios, but the first scenario, which I've now played 3 times, will put your main enemy's time. And it's a very tight game when it comes to the number of rounds you get to do what you need to do. Twice I've lost simply because I've run out of time, and you run out of breath. Essentially, you run out of air and you're dead. So because the game times you don't have the luxury to arm yourself better or to take a step back and wait until you have the right opportunity to do things. You have to constantly take risks. And here.
This sounds really familiar, Dave, doesn't it? Euan. In our
I was just
Gloomhaven
thinking that when you
campaign.
were saying about yeah.
And there's one mission that we cannot get past because it's timed.
What?
In our Gloomhaven campaign.
Okay. Well, no, there you go. I'm not saying it's impossible to beat, and quite the opposite. I think that the third time I played it, I was simply just unlucky, and it was quite a climactic defeat. If you're able to, in the next to last round, just get beaten, even though you thought you were winning, you would normally, I don't know, rage quit. Whereas I was just actually quite delighted by how the game just twisted what I thought I had. Sometimes it's going to be a couple of bad dice rolls. Sometimes it's going to be the fact that you've just missed one tiny thing that's going to take its revenge on you. But yeah, if there wasn't a timer on you, if there wasn't a drowning mechanic, and the simple fact that you're going to lose when your round counter as such has come to an end, then there wouldn't be as much pressure on you. You could hug your corners, shoot at everything that comes to you, and move slowly. Which is the way I play video games, by the way. I never rush around. I quite like to take my time. In this game, you actually have to make hard decisions all the time. So it's very engaging. And when you're making hard decisions and you have to calculate so many different abilities these creatures that are hunting you have, and obviously thanks to the tiles being as modular as they are, various bits of your map will also additionally complicate things. Take too long and suddenly you will actually be losing health just for the simple fact that you have to swim through drowned areas. Do you have to fight all of them? You can keep running if you like. That's just what I tried to do.
Is this why you keep failing it?
No, I actually keep failing because most of the time I focus on fighting too much. And in this particular case...
Well, that's what I meant, sorry.
Yeah, in this particular case, I actually was doing really well because I've managed to rein in my bloodthirsty instincts and just run for the final, I suppose, for the goal marker on the map, and I just got swarmed completely in the next to last round, which was awesome. Because you think you're getting swarmed by weak enemies, and suddenly you realize that the last tile you just got to, the last safe, haven, just got devoured, and suddenly those little ground monsters become much more dangerous.
Well, that's quite cool, because that's good that devoured mechanic works and does something interesting.
I mean, the devoured mechanics, firstly, creates a new spawn point.
Yeah,
Secondly, there's going to be a random marker put on every space where there isn't a spawn marker. So say your standard corridor will consist of two areas, two parts of a corridor. One of them will be a spawn marker which spits out monsters. The other one will be a Devour marker, or Devour token, if you call it that. And that token can be, I think, one of 8 or 10. There's a number of different options, and some of them can be terrible, and some of them can be almost non-consequential.
I've heard people complain that's a bit fiddly.
Well, you know what? It might be, but then you also have what's called Consciousness card and Madness card in this game. Madness card is something you draw and action whenever your character has gone slightly overboard with killing monsters. Because whilst you're killing monsters, you're also obviously facing them. That's important in Lovecraftian mythos. Whenever you're exposing yourself to the horrors of the otherworldly, whatever enemies in this case, sometimes your psyche sort of gives in, yeah? So once you've collected enough madness tokens, you're grabbing yourself a madness card. And the madness card, as well as consciousness card, gives you a little bit of a story, yeah? And apart from this, it's just going to give you a random debuff or buff. So, you know what? You're going to have a number of consciousness cards that actually allow you to remove a Devour token somewhere from the board.
Right,
so even a simple bit like this can be used strategically if you like. Again, there's so much content in this game, and it's just, everything is so neatly tied into one well-oiled package. And on top of it is just, Lovecraft, that's just awesome. Science fiction, brilliant. Add it together, and you've got Deep Space, which is one of my favorite science fiction games, so I am very happy. There is a second printing coming out just now, a Kickstarter currently live, where you can buy the game again, because they've gone overboard so much that they couldn't even go retail anymore with it, and they didn't have to either, according to what they say.
It's pretty standard now,
I suppose. But the new expansion seems to be putting an even crazier spin on its own, and an even better set of miniatures, where you're getting miniatures, each of the miniatures of the not really monsters that you're going to get in expansion, essentially twisted horror versions of your protagonists, of your characters. And they're not actually enemies, they can hinder both monsters and characters depending on how their AI moves them around. I'm mind blown.
That sounds cool. One more question. You're playing this solo. Would you play it with other people?
Yes, but it's going to be harder. I
think it would be good.
Cooperation has to be really tight in here, but in the end, I think it would be good fun for everybody, because it's not like it doesn't. The rounds don't take that much. I mean, the setup might be slightly scary for somebody that's doing it for the first time, because again, it's a complex game. But once you start making decisions, you flow through it. I think the game takes about 2 hours, maybe 3 if you're like really taking your time.
All right, cool. So when are we coming over?
With your loincloths?
Yes. Is there a perished loincloth madness card?
That's a fear card.
There's almost certainly a character in a loincloth, given the number of characters.
there is a lot of them, yes. And some of them are a bit bonkers. There's even a cat.
Oh, nice.
As in, the cat is actually a companion figurine to the Sigourney Weaver character.
Right.
Which sort of makes sense. I'll bring it over here, and we'll definitely have a look.
Right,
not,
cool.
Not that you're not welcome over there, but,
No, we're not, though, are we?
I've seen you behave.
I think I've been in your flat twice in the many years I've known you.
Also, you vape. That's just wrong.
Right, well, that's Deep Madness. That is by Dimension Games, and Dave, you're saying this is their only game so far?
As far as I'm aware, as a group of people together, I'm sure the individuals have designed games before, but a project of this scale, there was... they had nothing like that in their history. So there was a lot of people just buying it on the basis of the miniatures and the aesthetic.
An aesthetic, I mean, you buy plastic miniatures in board games, and you're sort of expecting them to be slightly bendy, something maybe missing, some of them differing from one another. Those are absolutely solid and just beautiful. I mean... I'm really impressed by the quality.
Yeah, and that's not a given, because often in Kickstarters what they present to you are either renders or 3D models, or they are resin models. And the ones that you get are plastic models rather than resin, and the quality is not the same. Yeah. In fact, I think pretty much it was all resin models they tended to show in the campaign. So it's quite good that they've managed to do this successfully. is by the sounds of things.
I think it must be just the amount of funding, because they got so much money they had to put a lot of it into simple quality improvements. So all your boxes are very neatly designed as well, with every figurine having a little bit of a space on the tray. Stuff like this, card holders, you name it. Very pretty.
All right, cool. So that's designed by Roger Ho as well.
Well done, dude.
Okay, thanks, Pawel. We're going to now talk about another couple of board games we play. Well, we're going to play some other board games until one of our friends brought round another friend who had never played a lot of board games before. He played a lot of miniatures games, I think it's fair to say. I think he'd recently won a 40k painting competition. This is Stu, or Stuart, whatever you want to call him. So we introduced him to a couple of sort of classic games, and that's really all we kind of got the time to play. So I was looking back into the archives of the episodes, and we've definitely talked about one of these games. The other one, I'm positive we have, and I cannot seem to find a record of it anywhere. So I feel that we've neglected to write it down. But we'll talk about the one that we've definitely talked about before first. This is Robo Rally. It's the classic robot game of programming. Dave, had you ever played this before?
No.
You hadn't?
No.
Oh, go on then, take it away.
I've heard all about it.
Because it'd be good to get your spin on it then, because our spin can definitely be heard on a previous episode.
Right. Well, as I was saying to Euan before we started, my spin in it can be heard on every other podcast that is speaking about Rover Rally, because it, as I understand it, is such a classic game.
Yes.
And there aren't really a lot of games that have come along to truly supersede it in the programming genre. So in this game, it's a bit like Robot Wars, if you're familiar with that on television, and everyone gets a little model that represents their battle bot. I don't know if there's a story for what's going on in this game or not.
Extensive backstory to Robo Rally.
Oh well, I missed out. I missed
all
out
the characters.
On that. Oh yes, although it doesn't matter which model you take, each character has a little
blurb,
a little story written down that tells you a bit about them. I quite liked that. That was cool on your little card. But they are all the same, really. And
yeah, there's no mechanical difference between them in the game. But they're nice little models.
They are nice.
And
they're cool.
I think 8 different ones.
My one looked like one of those mechanical carpet cleaners I was saying.
The
The hudded, yeah. Did you have those? You know what that is, Pawel, don't you?
Oh, you don't clean carpets in Poland. Because you would need carpets for this.
Yes.
So what was the name again?
We just call it the hudded.
Those are Westerners with our decadent luxuries.
You know those carpet cleaners, the ones that your gran used to have, that you would push it back and forward in the carpet and it would just go hudded.
Oh my god, this thing!
Yeah. See, I knew you would know what it was.
So it's not all just your gran beating a hard, cold stone floor with a reedy broom. Yeah. Out, Pawel! Sweep the stone floor. Pawelek, leave. You must not watch me do this wholesome activity. Go to church.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
So that's what my robot looked like. But they're cool little miniatures. And you put out a board. There's like a starting area where everybody puts their robots to begin with, and then there's a main arena, and it's covered in all these things like conveyor belts and these little things that spin you round if you drive over the top of them, and
rotating gears,
yeah, rotating gears, pits that you can fall into, and lasers that damage you if you finish your turn in their like path. And we place on this board a number of flags, which have numbers on them, and the object of the game is to go to each of these flags in order, and the first person to do so wins. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
And the way you do this is by programming your robots. So everybody gets a hand of cards. I think it's like 9 cards or something at the start, thereabouts. And you have your little programming board in front of you, and you have to give your robot 6 maybe instructions.
It's 5.
5 instructions, thank you. So you choose from your hand of cards, and there are things like go forward 1 space, go forward 2 spaces, rotate 90 degrees to the right, rotate to the left, do a UE, go backwards, that kind of thing.
Do a UE.
Do a UE. So you put them down in order to program your robot for that turn. And then once everybody's done that, we go through the cards. There is kind of a turn order for... Oh, but actually no, there isn't, because there's like numbers on the cards that will dictate the order that things happen in for those situations where it matters what order people move in. But generally, everyone turns over their first card and you move your robot, whatever it says, whatever you've programmed it to do, and then we turn over the second one and so on all the way through to the fifth. And hopefully your robot ends up where it is that you had planned for it to end up. But most of the time, or a lot of the time, it does not. Because, first of all, if you're like me, it's very difficult just to look 5 turns ahead with these cards. It is very easy to make mistakes. And especially once you've got things like you're moving onto a conveyor belt, which then will move your robot after you've turned over the card that moved it onto the conveyor belt, it will move, and the conveyor belt can rotate you, and then you've got the gears, and you might get the direction that the gear is going to rotate in wrong. I did that a few times. Or you might even not see it because someone was on top of it and you didn't realise it was there. Yeah, that's an issue. And also, everyone else is moving at the same time, and if they move, they can... if they sort of run into you, they can push you 1 square, assuming there's space for you to go into. I mean, they might push you into a pit, and that's not ideal because then you die. But even it's not just death. At the end of each, is it at the end of each card flip, or is it at the end of each turn after we've been through all 5 cards? Do we fire our lasers?
It's the end of every card flip.
Yeah, right.
The robot shoots straight ahead of them.
Yeah, so you can take damage, and the way there's like a little tracker on your programming sheet for keeping track of your damage, but what that does is initially it reduces the number of cards that you can have in your hand. For each damage point that you take, you have 1 fewer card in your hand for your next turn. But once you get down to a certain point of damage, it starts locking in the cards that you've programmed. So your robot gets jammed in this. It's at the end of the sequence, so maybe you'll have like 2 cards that are locked. So every turn that you take subsequently, whatever you've chosen for those last 2 cards before you got damaged, they're stuck there now. And if it's like, go forward and then turn to the right, you have to somehow compensate for that with the first 3 cards that you're putting down. Until such times as you can, either die, because that kind of heals you a bit, or you can heal yourself a little bit on the board. There's like spots you can stop at to heal yourself. And there's like special weapons you can pick up that do interesting things if you land on the right spot, and that's kind of it. Yeah,
that is the rules of the game.
Yeah,
but the fun in the game is just the utter madness that it causes, because the board seems a decent size to begin with, but when everybody's trying to get to the same spot at the same time, you get to a point where everybody's sort of converging on it, assuming that nothing's gone wrong up to that point, and then everybody just starts slamming into each other, and you end up on a conveyor belt that you never wanted to be on, or you end up, like Dave says, pushed into a pit, or you're just ramming into a wall pointlessly, because like hitting walls does nothing to your robot, but it means that you're not going anywhere. Sometimes you can use that to your advantage, actually. If you've got bad cards in your hand, you can deliberately smash your robot into a wall for a few turns just to stop from anything else happening.
Because sometimes the hand of cards you get is not ideal.
Oh, yeah.
Especially once you have fewer cards. But a couple of times I had like just a hand of cards that was all like rotated. I'd have one movement cards and lots of cards for spinning around. I was like, at least this will be an easy turn in terms of decision making.
Yeah, but Dave, you want to try and spin at the right moment so you shoot all the other robots.
Well, this is true. Yeah. There is you can try and second guess what people are going to do to an extent. It's challenging because it's so chaotic. Mm-hmm. But that's the fun of it. And it is, I liked it. It's a lot of fun. And the thing with this game though, and the sort of main complaint I understand that people have with it is that chaotic nature. Mm-hmm. And the fact that a game has no fixed length. And I think definitely people have played games where it just went on forever.
Yeah, definitely.
And it is, obviously, player count has a big effect on that, because it does take 8 players, and that's too many, I would say, for...
We have played it with, like, I think it was 7 people, possibly around.
Big games.
And that was just utter stupidity, I think. I mean, that
fun,
game did go on for ages. It was fun and it was silly, but it did go on for about 2 hours or something.
Yeah, I can see it being fun initially, and then after an hour, people will be like, "This is starting to wear a little bit thin."
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, we played it with 5, but we played one of the sort of simple races where there's only 3 flags to touch, because you can have up to 8 flags on the board to touch, and that would just, like, I wouldn't do that.
I think that's where it becomes a problem.
I feel like this game could be made to work with those number of players if they just adjusted the objectives and what the aim of the game was and how you win, so that it cannot go on indefinitely. Because that can't be a thing. You can't have a can't have a game that can technically go on forever.
The thing is, I mean, the robots do have lives. And if you lose 3 lives, if you die 3 times...
I suppose so, yeah.
You
are out.
Yeah.
And I think just last man standing would be the winner.
Oh, that would take forever, though.
But that would take forever.
Unless they shorten the lives of the robots, because, I mean, it takes quite a while for you to...
It's the thing with having to go to them in order, and...
Yeah,
well, I was going to say, people do house rule this game.
Yeah, I think you could, you
like,
could come up with your
touch
own...
the flags in any order or whatever.
Yeah.
There are also people that do, because those sort of upgrades that you pick up, the upgrade cards, which do some funky shit, people do play sometimes that instead of you only get those at the very end of the round, it's just that any time you touch one of those spots, you get one. And that does make the game probably more chaotic, but faster. Because they do some mad stuff. Like, one of the things, like, Stu picked up, he was the first person to pick up an upgrade, and he had the choice of either firing his gun or using his gun to push other people instead of causing damage to them. So you could just point at somebody and then push them straight into a pit from a mile away. So
yeah, or if you do that on the first move, then that's probably them humped for the the remainder of the turn. So that's a lot of fun for sure. No, there must be. I mean, there are so many games I haven't played. Obviously, there must be a lot of other programming games out there. They're not super.
Played other games that have used that mechanic.
Oh yeah,
Pawel. We played. What was it? Space Cadets.
Space Cadets is hilarious.
Yeah,
that is a programming game.
Yes.
Aye.
But
there are a few programming games out there,
but I feel like Rover Rally is due a kind of remake, just with a wee bit of a buff to it.
Well, see, I've got the 2005 version. It's the Avalon Hill one, and you can see it here. But it has been re-released by Wizards of the Coast, and I don't know if they've changed anything in it.
Oh, it's possible, yeah. I mean, it doesn't need much. It could do with like a wee bit more in just terms of stuff, variety. It could take a little bit more. And just the way so that, I don't know, it's just different game modes so that there is an end. Sort of reasonable time.
I mean, we set up, because at the back of the rulebook in this version, there's loads of scenarios, and we picked one of the scenarios and played that, and it was one of the really basic ones that we played.
Right.
So there are other scenarios, and some of the boards do. Okay. Some of the boards are way more chaotic than others.
Yeah.
Like the one that we played on is actually one of the less chaotic ones, believe it or not.
No, I saw the one that was covered in conveyor belts.
Yeah. There's one that is just a massive circle of conveyor belts.
Because when you play one of the early ones, it's just it's a single square board. Aren't there some where you actually it's bigger?
You use 2 boards. Yeah, you put 2 boards together and make an absolutely massive area.
Yeah,
but. The thing is that having those flags all spaced out across 2 boards just makes the game longer. There's no 2 ways about that. So there's different ways that you can change things up in this game. Like I say, there's house ruling and all that sort of thing, but there's different scenarios as well. So it is. I mean, the game is fun. The essence of it is really, really fun. You do have a lot of fun with it. Just when something goes horribly wrong for somebody and you were the cause of that, there is a certain glee to that I'm sure Pawel, you'll understand. You're that kind of man.
Nothing pleases you as much as breaking something. That is true, yes. I've actually played Robo Rally once, and I remember in most games that you play for the first times, you divide your time into, between learning how to play something and actually trying to do something whilst playing. And I remember in Robo Rally that was essentially, I suppose, learning what all those actions are and what you can do. was one thing, but actually coming up with tactics how to do something against or in spite of that chaos was something I've just not grasped. And the entire game I've spent just spinning. Not literally, but in terms of tactics, it was essentially just spinning. I enjoyed it, but I had this feeling I've done just nothing. Effectiveness 0.
I mean, if you don't have that ability to, what's the term for it? It's not spatial awareness, but that sort of looking ahead and planning.
Intelligence,
those kind of
you mean?
Yeah, intelligence.
Oh, okay, yeah, I don't.
If you don't have that ability,
well, you need to be able to visualize where your robot is after each step and retain that in your head while you're thinking about what the next card is, and not get
I do have a tendency.
and not get confused.
Oh yeah, you'll see me playing this game like sort of craning my neck and sort of like trying to like physically go through the motions. Like, is this going to, like, if I turn this way and that's turning, it's like
yeah. But there's also a pressure on you when you're picking your cards. I never said this, because when the second last person has put all 5 of their cards down to program their robot, there is a little timer thing that you flip, which puts pressure on the last person to actually finish off their programming. Otherwise, they get random cards put in, and they don't want that. So that does speed that sort of part of the game up a bit. Because I think without
that's super important.
it is quite very important. Because otherwise, people would just sit for ages programming the robots. So yeah, it's probably important to use that timer. And you feel a bit, mean sometimes when you flip a thing over and somebody doesn't have a single card down, but you're just like, nah, this game needs this. So yeah, that is Robo Rally. That was originally published in 1994.
Wow, so cool.
So it's a very old game in board game in terms.
1985.
Was it?
So it says.
Oh yeah, it was designed. So it was.
Wow,
And
some of us were probably not alive by then.
Well, I was very, very young.
I was a wee.
I think we were all wee in 1985. I was wee then.
I'd only just started smoking a pipe at that point.
The fond memories of narcotics.
Okay, so that's designed by Richard Garfield, who is a giant of game design, I suppose it's fair to say. He's a massive name. Magic the Gathering and Netrunner and various other things.
Lasagna.
Lasagna? Richard Garfield.
Lasagna the card game.
I see what you did, Euan.
I know. Couldn't help it.
Okay. So let's say, there's a re-release of that came out in 2016. I don't know what is in that, so let us know. Okay, and moving on then. So the last game that we've played was Sentinels of the Multiverse. And please, if anybody knows if we did talk about this game, we've talked about so many games that we've just completely lost track now, but I get the feeling we have.
I'd find it hilarious if someone took the time to go through our old episodes and find out where we.
Well, I did, and I couldn't find it.
Oh well. Well, if someone manages it,
I'm sure we've
fair play to
talked
them.
about it, but we've played it definitely because
You've played this, pal?
Yes, I've played with
Dave,
you
you've
guys.
never played this before, right?
No, I have played it before.
You have played it before.
Yeah. But just the
okay,
once.
so we've all played this game before, but we introduced it to Stu because he'd never played it.
And also, I had more fun this time.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's to
I
do
had less fun than I have any other
Probably
time.
depends on your choice of the Sentinel.
Yes, and I think that's an important thing. So Sentinels of Multiverse is a card game in which you're all playing superheroes, which they're not, Batman and stuff. They're made up for this game, but a lot of the characters are clearly based on
better
on other superheroes. And the idea here is that you've got to fight a big bad villain. So you pick a big bad villain to fight against once everybody's picked a hero. But there's also a third thing in the game, and this is kind of what makes the game what it is, because the third thing in the game is the place that you're fighting in. So the environment. And the environment gets its own turn in this game. It has its own deck. So when you're setting this game up, everybody's got your hero, you pick somebody to fight against, and you pick the environment that you're going to fight them in. And like I say, some of the heroes, some of the villains, are harder than others. They are ranked in difficulty in the rulebook. And some of the environments are much more mental than others. Some of them are not that chaotic, whereas others are just crazy. And essentially, it's a very simple game in terms of how it plays, because you have your own deck for your superhero, so nothing gets added or taken away from that deck during the game. It's not like a deck building game or anything like that. You just have this one standard deck for your superhero. You shuffle it, you take some cards, and you essentially on your turn you can play a card, you can use a power that you have on the table, which is generally something written on a card that you've played already. and then you draw another card. Then it's the next hero's turn. And you do that, and then at the end of the round, the environment has a turn. And then at the start of the next round, the villain will have a turn. But the game, like I say, is entirely based upon what things you've picked. So, like, the villain that we fought was the transforming robot base.
It's a robot factory.
The robot
Sentient
factory.
robot factory.
Yes. What's the name of that game?
Which is such a cool concept for a villain.
Was that not just Ultron from Avengers?
Oh, well, I guess, but...
Well, he's called
that's not-
Omnitron.
Yeah, but that's... See, I never realised that, so I imagined him as being
I'm
much
sorry.
more exciting than Ultron. From the Avengers.
See, I thought he was kind of based on Unicron from Transformers.
Because in my mind, he was just like a factory.
Which is,
I'm
Just
sure
like a factory with conveyor belts.
there's
and
an
stuff,
X-Men
but it
thing
was
with
alive.
there is like this sentient thing that keeps making Sentinels, the things that go after X-Men. I'm pretty certain that's a thing.
Yeah, that's Ultron though, isn't it?
No.
Is it not?
No, it's something else.
Are we getting geeky now? My goodness.
I do remember.
But
this,
it's real seem to be based on something.
Anyway, I just loved the. I love the.
But it is a
idea
factory
of
more than just like a robot.
Yeah, I think a living
James
factory
Spader's
is
voice.
such a such a cool idea. Just imagine going inside it.
Why would you go inside a villain?
you don't want to be inside it when it transforms into its robot form and it starts smashing things to pieces.
So he was one of the easier ones, I think.
He is one of the easier ones,
Yeah.
yes. Definitely, we've played this game and fought some much, much harder villains. The chairman, for example.
Whoever
is
we played
almost impossible.
when I played the last time, we just got pummeled.
Yeah.
That was it.
That might have been when we tried to fight the chairman.
Yeah,
There was some villain that we played. I think I played with you. I seem to remember.
we just got
getting
absolutely
humped.
massacred. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they have a lot. They have a huge amount of health. Because ultimately, well, maybe some of the villains are different, but certainly the ones I've played is just about chipping down their...
That's it. You just really have to kill the villain. There might be other things you may have to do. So, for example, Omnitron, if you kill Omnitron, the transforming robot factory, you don't actually win the game until all of his robots are dead as well. All the things he spawns.
Makes sense.
We didn't have a hard time with that at all. We were killing his robots pretty much as soon as they came out.
Yeah.
But yeah, the villains do their own thing essentially. So each villain has his own way of playing the game. Essentially, the villain turn is pretty much the same as the hero turn. You pretty much always you'll just play a card from the villain deck, and do whatever it says on it, and then you'll go through all the cards that he has on the table and do whatever they say on them. And they'll be like attacking your heroes, doing all sorts of really annoying stuff. So, for example, Omnitron had a robot that healed him. So we tried to keep that robot as dead as possible. But whenever Omnitron transformed, he went into his discards and took a random robot back out of that and put it back into play. So his robots were constantly respawning. So you had to try and keep on top of killing all his robots, keeping them dead. So yeah, there's something like Apostate, who is an infernal emissary. There you go, Pawel. There's some artwork for you. But again, he's one of these robots that has two sides. So his other side is a dark corruptor. And depending on what side he's on, it's it changes how the game plays for him. So like when he flips over to his dark corruptor side, he heals 20 hit points, which is a lot of hit points.
Sure is.
In this game. But he only has 66 to begin with compared to Omnitron, who had like 120 or something like that. So like, yeah, the villains all play really, really differently, and that's important in this game because the game can keep you coming back for more because there's so many different villains to fight. And
So
there's
it's
so many.
the same like with comic books, yes? Where
Yeah.
Spider-Man is always the same, so you keep coming back for the villain.
Spiderman.
Spider-Man!
But also he'd team up though, because comic book team ups are
Yes.
the whole thing with like Iron Man.
Euan Man.
Iron Man?
That's
The Avengers.
Yeah. So yeah, there's loads of variety in this.
There is a lot of variety when you because there's so many different villains to fight, and they fight you in different ways. But the actual rules of the game don't change as such because on your turn you're basically doing the same thing. So depending on what heroes you've picked, all the heroes will play slightly differently as well. But the actual main rules, the mechanics, don't change. So like I was Bunker in that last game we fought, which is a massive sort of like he's a kind of robot as well, but he's supposed to be almost like a Hulk-esque character almost. He seems a bit tanky, but he's a robot that has different modes. and depending on what mode you're in, it changes what I can actually do in a turn. So if I'm in like turret mode, for example, I can only use my powers. I can't draw cards or play them. But going into turret mode, if I've got loads of powers on the table, then I can just sit and just open fire, basically, because a lot of his powers are just about firing rockets at things and, using his various cannons or whatever. Dave, who did you play as?
Mist Woman.
Mist Woman.
That's not her real name. I don't remember.
Misty Lady.
Yeah, she was pretty good for the scenario that we had, because she had some rather important cards. She didn't do a lot of damage, but she was able to remove cards from the table that had been placed by the environment in particular.
Is this Night Mist? Is that who you were?
Yeah, she got like white hair.
Yes.
Yes, probably. That was like the first thing. One of the first cards I got was like Assume Mist form.
Yeah.
which makes you invulnerable to damage, but you can't pick up any card. No, it makes you invulnerable to damage, but you can't play any cards or use any powers.
Yeah.
But you get to draw an extra card as well. So,
which really helped you because the environment was really fucking us over in that game, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it tended to attack the person who had the highest health, which was me, because I wasn't taking any damage. So I spent quite a significant portion of the beginning of the game just in misform, drawing up about half my deck into my hand. So it worked out quite well getting that card early. I think part of the reason we had an easy time of it was having some characters that were well suited to matching the environment and the enemy.
Yeah,
like
which my character didn't.
Yeah, I think maybe that's why you had less fun.
I had less fun in that. That was the less fun I had. I think Bunker was not the character to play as against this enemy with this environment. It kept messing me up.
I was when Bunker's a very niche character in this. You always think, this is going to be fun, and then it's usually like, oh god, I've got to go into turret mode now.
The thing is that Bunker's one of the easier characters to play as, because the characters themselves actually have difficulty ratings in terms of how complicated they are to play. I think it's fair to say that Stu had a lot of fun playing as Absolute Zero.
Yeah.
Who is an absolutely crazy character, who just takes lots of... He's like a sort of robot... not robot, but like he's got a massive suit of armour on, robotic style. And he can do things with his fire and ice powers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like he can start blasting things with fire and, blasting himself with fire and stuff as well. But because he does that, it turns stuff into ice damage, but ice damage heals him, and it was all these weird powers that he ended up on the table with. So he spent a lot of the time just healing himself, just blasting himself with, which I'm sure violates quite a lot of laws of physics, to be honest. But yeah, he was having a great time as Absolute Zero. What was the fourth character we had on the table?
Can't remember.
Does anyone remember?
I always like to either go their sort of Flash version with Speeder Woman, not Spider Woman,
not Spider Woman, okay,
Fast Woman, and Piccolo Aquaman.
Piccolo
is sort of Aquaman, but basically Piccolo from Dragon Ball.
Oh, you're thinking of Tempest.
Yeah,
Tempest is a great character.
Oh, he's great.
Tempest can heal people quite a lot, but he has the power of rain and lightning and things like that.
All this like elemental stuff.
I remember, I think I played a character that had like 2 lucky handguns.
Oh yeah, you went expatriate.
Oh yeah, that was the thing. And she was barely shaving any health of enemies until she got her combo pistols, and once she got that, she was just bloody unstoppable when it comes to damage.
Expatriate's one of those characters that spends a bit of time getting equipment out. But once you get fully tooled up with all of her equipment, she can go nuts.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things with Bunker. Like, Bunker could do a pretty good thing where he could get one of his cannons out and store cards from his hand underneath it and save all of those up and then double that amount for damage. And one of the things that bloody environment did was get rid of those cards that were in front of me.
that must have not been satisfying.
Because I then spent the next... Because I was building up, and then I had to just start again basically halfway through the game, because having done very little damage to anything... I didn't contribute much in that last game. But the point that we're kind of getting to here is like Sentinels and Multiverse. It's got I mean, how many heroes are in that? It's what, 12, 14 maybe different heroes that you can play as. There's about 10 different villains in there that you can play against. There's 5 or 6 different environments, and they range from like the realm of Discord, which is where we were, to like the Temple of Anubis in Egypt, to a place called Megalopolis, and then there's even like Insula Primus or whatever it's called, which is the dinosaur world, which everybody loves, but then it spawns dinosaurs that come after you. So
At least the dinosaurs are kind of straightforward. It's like, just kill those. Some of the other environment stuff just does horrendous things to you that just frustrate your attempts to do anything, and kind of like, and some of them combine with the what the sort of enemies do in like ways that are just really devastating.
But some things, I mean, I think the important thing is that the environment affects the enemies as well. And that's really important in the game. I mean, like, there was a card that came out during the Realm of Discord, which, you know, there are different temporal distortions that happen and things. So, like, we were going at twice the speed that we should have been because of this card that came out. So we were able to play, like draw 2 cards, play 2 cards or whatever, and use 2 powers every turn. But, like, that also affects the villain as well. So the villain's also doing stuff like that. So, like, you know, it actually worked out. It works out better for us because we get, in terms of the net gain a number of cards and powers that we use is way more than the villain will get to use. But yeah, that's the interesting thing about the game. I think that's the important part about this game, is that the environment is the thing that makes it. It's the thing that makes the game different from any other sort of, like, everybody against a villain thing.
Yeah, because you can combo them all together. So you've sort of doubled or in fact more than that, the number of scenarios that you can have, and then you've got all your different superheroes on top of that.
Yeah,
you know, you can randomize whichever aspects of it if you want, if that's your kind of thing, or you could pick specific villains and scenarios and then choose your like for more difficult super villains, you could tailor your team of heroes to try and take them down. So there's a lot of mileage in it, I think, for what is quite a simple game to play.
Like I was saying, the mechanics are so simple, but the game does get complicated at certain points because, you know, if you've got that many different cards out on the table, there are things where you just kind of go, okay, well, that's happening to that thing which affects this thing, and then, you know, this card says that it hits the hero with the 3rd highest amount of hit. Okay, who's got the 3rd highest hit points? Everybody count your hit points again for the 15th time this round. You know,
I know it's going to be
kind of get bogged down in that sometimes, but overall, the game is really, really fun.
There is a Steam version.
There is a Steam version, yes.
I've actually played it, and because this game can actually be quite, maybe not complicated in terms of rules, but in terms of permutations of those rules, how many things can happen, or how easy it is to sometimes miss a tiny bit of a consequence of something.
Sure, you could forget that everyone's doing an extra point of damage this turn. We had that for quite a long period of time in the Realm of Discord. So you had to remember for everything that happened. So we have to add one onto that.
Steam will do all of this for you. It's probably easier to play.
But it's certainly not the worst game I've played in that regard. I mean, it is something to be aware of. There's the sort of minor arithmetic that you sometimes have to do, particularly with Stu's character. There was a lot of add one, double this sort of thing. But it's not that bad.
Nothing wrong in making people learn mathematics.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, particularly if you were playing it solo, which some people do, I could see it being a bit more of a headache. But when you're playing with a group of people, usually someone will remember the thing that you've forgotten. Most of the time. So.
One of the cool things about this game, probably the last thing we should say because we are running out of time here, but your character can die in this game, but what happens is when you die is that you just flip your character card over, and the story being here that the rest of the heroes will fight harder because you have died, so they're more pumped up. They're like, you bastards. You know,
you killed Kenny,
and you still get to take a turn when you're dead. And the back of your hero card will give you 3 choices about what you can do, and it's different for every hero as well, which is pretty cool. And generally it buffs the rest of the party. So it can be something like, for the rest of this round, every other hero will do 1 extra damage or something like that, or everybody will heal 1 hit point or something, or gets to draw a card.
It's pretty cool.
So I really like that idea because, you know, it very much feels like a superhero thing. You know, when one of them goes down, the rest of them go mental, you know.
I think that's the best. One of the things about this is always finding the strength of is, even with all the variety thing, I feel they must have play tested the arse out of this to get this. I mean, with all the variety of it, to get it always feeling like an actual superhero battle, where you're always, even with the easier enemies, you're always kind of pushed to the brink, and it has that sort of feeling, all right, you've got to cooperate and you've got to find how best your powers are going to work in this scenario and everything like that. It always has that element of it, which makes it quite not realistic, but in the style, because it's not exactly.
See, I've been trying to avoid using the word realistic.
I know
this whole thing.
True to like comic style sort of storytelling, and that's the one.
It's like real superheroes.
That guy that dresses as Batman, Fathers for Justice.
Fathers for Justice, the board game.
You've cracked and think you're a mass vigilante.
Your loincloth is perished.
No!
Okay, well, I think we need to wrap up there. So that is Sentinels of the Multiverse, which is still a hell of a lot of fun. That came out 2011. I should say that the version I've got, if I remember right, when I bought this, it came with 2 expansions pretty much already in the box, or possibly... Maybe that was separate, actually. I think I may have a separate box. Maybe I just bought the expansion.
I think you do have a separate box for this. Something.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Maybe I did get it. I maybe got it together as a deal or something. But yeah, I have got 2 expansions for it, which just adds more like villains and stuff to fight against. But I think there's a lot more expansions than that as well, from what I remember. So there's definitely a lot of scope there for just adding in more nonsense to the game.
It's sort of reasonably priced.
Yeah,
I would say. I mean, okay, you're just getting cards, but I mean, if you compare the prices of board games these days, it's starting to look a bit cheaper.
It's starting to look reasonable. Yeah. So that is designed by Christopher Bedell, Paul Bender, and Adam Ribotaro, and published now by Greater Than Games. Okay, well that is episode 99. 99. You know what that means, lads? Episode 100.
Oh, sorry.
Ice cream.
That does mean ice cream.
We have a flake. We've gone full circle. So yes, episode 100 is going to be our next episode. Now, we are going to take 2 or 3 weeks off before we do that, because there's some work that we need to do. So we have promised a new theme tune. That is coming. We have already recorded quite a bit of that. We've got a few more things to do, and then we're going to have to sort of... Well, Dave's going to have to produce it, mix it down, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that is coming. All we'll say right now is Turbo Folk. It's what you've got to look forward to.
The Slavs are going to love it.
Yeah, our Slavic listeners, anyone living in the Balkans, you're going to love this.
That's what we do it for, really.
We're also going to spend a bit of time working on episode 100, so it's going to be a bit different. It's not going to be like a normal episode. It's going to be a bit fun. So it will be out. I'm looking at now the 26th of November. So that's Monday the 26th of November is the date that I'm setting for us to have this episode out. So that's about, 2.5 weeks away now. Something like that. No, 3 weeks away. So yes, hopefully it's going to be good. And you're all going to enjoy it.
This is going to be the Viz Christmas annual of podcast episodes for us.
I hope not.
It's going to be that good.
It's not going to be a compilation. It's not going to be a compilation episode, put it that way. So we will give out all our internet details. If you want to email us, it is firstplayertoken@gmail.com. That's FIRST. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube. We have a PSN community. We have a Discord, which is discord.me/firstplayertoken. Again, that's FIRST. So everything's FIRST except our Twitter and our Twitch, which is 1ST player token.
That'll be once the player token.
Thank you very much, Euan. We've missed you doing that.
I know, well, maybe we can have a poll to see who does it better.
Oh, it's you, because Dave sounds like a robot when he does it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh. He sounds really bored when he does it.
I didn't know I injected it with that much emotion.
And lastly, we are part of the Podnose Network,
UK's leading entertainment podcast network.
Thank you very much, Euan. So we've been waiting for some news for a few weeks. What's the news?
You're going to be disappointed. The Patreon's still going, so you kick him some money.
Back to the default news, is it? You?
I mean, you've always got to plug the Patreon.
So yes,
If in doubt.
you can find the Podnose Patreon on Patreon. Go and throw all your money at George. He'll appreciate it.
He's a good lad.
We won't see a single penny of it, so don't worry about that. So if you don't like us, then it's fine. It's George that gets it all. Okay, well, we will see you in episode 100 in a few weeks' time. But until then, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.